Are you saying no to
Yes,
to tea?
meaning someone is here, they're on time, give them the respect of starting the show.
Who's here?
I don't know, but just I see that somebody's here.
Oh, well, I see a 1. I thought that was you.
No.
I guess it's not.
Now we have
So whoever you, oh, hello. I've got a cup of tea because it's Thursday tea time with Trevor, and I'm Trevor, EIDL expert, retired mortgage banker and loan officer. And today we're going to talk about 3 topics. We're going to talk about the COVID-19 EIDL program in 2 areas. Number 1, specifically about forgiveness. We did a video last Friday, which has been blowing up, so I'm not going to get into the details on forgiveness as much as I did in that video. We'd encourage you, if you haven't seen it yet, to go to our playlist and watch it because it's scary and may induce anxiety. So definitely have a nice cup of tea in front of you when you watch that video. Secondly, and specifically for the folks in disaster areas, Hurricane Milton, Hurricane Helene, the Los Angeles wildfires, and other disasters, most recently, believe it or not, the snow in Louisiana was declared a disaster area, and those communities may be eligible for SBA disaster loans. And I'm going to talk about the basics that we learned about the program during the pandemic and that we have assisted clients to manage their disaster loan applications over the last nearly 3 years, and what we've learned, including as recently as last night when I spoke to someone and assisted them with some paperwork uploading to the My SBA portal for a disaster loan for the Eaton wildfire in Los Angeles. So those are the 3 areas I'm going to cover, and I would encourage you to ask me questions because right here on the side of the screen I can see the questions. So first let me say hello, Road Lion, and Toshiba Vudo. Toshiba, oh sorry, I haven't had enough tea, Toshiba. You know, I just call you Toshiba because back, you know, when I worked in electronics in Crazy Eddie days in the 80s, I was a big fan of Toshiba products. So there you go. PLA Preschool, hello. In sunny Arizona. Nice to hear. And who else? That's all I see for the moment. So to manage some expectations about asking questions. Number 1, if you have a question, I would ask you to be to put the question into a single comment box. So it's easier for me to see it here on the screen. And secondly, you know, be as concise as you can in the question. In other words, if your question is about the hardship accommodation program to getting reduced payments for 6 months for a COVID EIDL, if that's your question, hey, you know, my question is about hardship extension. I'm on my 2nd extension period and I'm having a problem with my business because my nephew broke his knee and this is happening and that's happening. No, just give me the question. I've had 2 hardship accommodations. I'm going to the 3rd. What should I expect? How do I go about it? Things of that nature. Okay. Also, I will make the effort to answer questions, but please understand that there's no way that I can possibly counsel on every aspect of what we work on and have worked on with these files and with the SBA. So if my answer seems to be kind of a generic or general answer, I'm not trying to be ambiguous, vague. I'm not trying to be a huckster and sell you something or a shill. Yeah, we're going to talk about that later because we get accused of that. I'm just trying to give you the best information I can in the time allotted to us. But our resource hub will, and you will hear me reference our EIDL and Disaster Loan Resource Hub, which you can purchase, and there'll be a link for that. That you'll hear me reference that as a kind of a source of more detail if you want to be a DIY, do it yourself, and get that level of detail. Otherwise, again, ask you to be respectful of the fact that I want to try to answer questions, and if I sound that I'm being vague, I'm not doing that intentionally. I'm trying to cover the bases as best as possible. You know, there's a lot that's nuanced about what we have interacted with with the SBA for the last 5 years. And that nuance and those subtleties, I can't necessarily share those in an answer to your question. On that note, Linda Ray's sitting over there in her fuzzy pink robe, and she's going to show you something right now. And I'm going to sip a little. Okay. Forgiveness. Again, if you have not seen our video, which we published last Friday, I would encourage you, after this broadcast, to find it on our playlist and watch it. Last I checked, we were over 6,300 views, and it's not our most popular video. That was, I think, the 2202 form during the pandemic, but it's doing well because in that video, I'm continuing my tradition as a Scottish guy, an old guy, a loan officer with 30 years in the mortgage industry doing government loans for the last 5 years, working with the SBA and with folks like you with the COVID EIDL program, and now with various interactions on that program, and also with the disaster loan program. And I'm giving it to folks right between the eyes, as bluntly and as honestly as I can. So I'd encourage you to watch the video. But the bottom line is forgiveness. Oh, there's the video. Linda put it up. Boom. Forgiveness, it's not happening. And I've been saying this since the days of the pandemic. And a lot of folks just don't want to believe me and don't want to listen to my opinion, which is based on expert experience, both as a direct lender for 30 years with government programs and with this program. And sadly, Senator Ernst, who was until at the end of last year, she was the ranking Republican on the Senate Entrepreneurship, Small Business Entrepreneurship Committee, where she spent a lot of the last 2 years sending really mean and nasty letters to the administration of the SBA and the former administrator of the SBA, Isabel Casillas Guzman. And she sent these letters demanding the SBA do better to collect every penny. And in our opinion, in my opinion, the complete debacle that happened at the end of 2023 and into the beginning of 2024, where the SBA shipped off 860,000 plus loans for collections to the U.S. Treasury due to non-payment, being in default. I'm of the opinion, and nothing is going to change my mind, that the SBA administrators basically said, okay, Senator Ernst, and there was another congressperson on the House of Representatives committee with the same kind of communications. I think they just collectively shrugged and said, okay, you want us to collect? You got it. We're going to ship all these loans as per regulations, 120 days. The loan is technically in default, subject to collection. And we're just going to take all these loans from our constituents and just ship them off to the U.S. Treasury for collections. Up to that point, the SBA, with its limited resources, because the Congress has underfunded this agency for decades. This is not just because of the pandemic. The Congress has been ignoring the Small Business Administration since the 1990s. So that led to this crisis at the end of 23 and 24. The SBA was trying to work with you borrowers with the limited resources they had to help people overcome issues, technical issues where people couldn't create profiles on pay.gov or the MySBA portal, where people were setting auto payments and the payment didn't come out. You know, I worked with a few clients starting in something like August of 2023 to work out issues that we discovered or that the clients discovered about their attempts to repay the loan. And SBA representatives, with their limited resources, were trying to work with their constituents, you, the small business owner. But by November, December of 23 and into January, February of 24. That's it. The SBA just shipped all those loans off en masse to the U.S. Treasury for what's called the U.S. Treasury TOP, Treasury Offset Program. Offset meaning the Treasury can immediately garnish payments that you receive from the government, such as a tax refund, Social Security payment. If you're a medical professional, you get Medicaid reimbursement, Medicaid payments. If you're a government contractor, you're getting payments from the government for work you did, garnish those payments through the offset program. And we saw with clients that came to us for help, Treasury did that immediately out of the gate. The other thing that Treasury did was sent a lot of loans to private collection agents. And we were contacted by people after they got a call or an email from a private collection agency or a letter in the mail from a private collection agency. They didn't even know they were in collections. The SBA didn't tell them. The Treasury didn't tell them. The private collection agency told them. So this was the mess that happened, in my opinion, due to this political pressure from Senator Ernst and I think it's Congressman Williams from Texas. But Senator Ernst is now the chairperson of that same Senate Committee on Small Business and Entrepreneurship. And a week ago, she announced new legislation. I think is it Linda? Is it called the COVID Collection Act or something like that?
Yeah, COVID Payment Collection
COVID
Act.
Payment Collection Act.
Something like that.
I'm drinking tea because this is Thursday tea time with Trevor. And just so you know, we will be doing this again next Thursday, the 20th at 5:30 p.m. Eastern, 2:30 p.m. Pacific, so that we can engage with more of our West Coast audience. But so Senator Ernst has introduced this legislation to enhance and step up and demand from you, the borrowers, every penny that was loaned out to you. When I come back in this broadcast, in the third segment, where we're talking about SBA's mismanagement of the repayment system and the hardship accommodation program, I'm going to discuss, and also in the disaster loan segment, which is the second segment of today's broadcast, I'm going to discuss my new theory about what's happening behind the scenes at SBA as a result of all this political pressure. And it comes out of some statements that the SBA made in a letter to Congress and in comments to the media, including a statement they made to Louis Cam from NBC Universal, who contacted me at the end of last year about the disaster loan program. But when I discussed with him, I answered his questions, but when I told him about this whole U.S. Treasury collections mess, he changed directions and he wrote an article. He interviewed me. He interviewed Jason, who's here on YouTube, Jason Tees. He interviewed several of our clients, and he got commentary back from the SBA as per his requests for more information. And the SBA, in their comments to Lewis and in communications to the Congress and to other media outlets, said, we are stepping up enforcement and attempts to root out fraud in the SBA programs. I don't know if you've heard of the phrase, she's a hammer and everything's a nail, because my new theory developed just this week after speaking to some folks who suffered debilitating losses from the Los Angeles wildfires, and some other clients we worked with over the last 2 years for disaster loans. My new theory is that the SBA is looking at every single file, whether it's a COVID file where you got the loan already and maybe now you want to do a change of ownership, you want to sell assets, you have a problem with repaying the loan, hardship accommodation or technical problem, or you're applying for a disaster loan. I think the SBA internally is a hammer in search of a nail, and everything's a nail, and the nail means fraud. imagine you're driving down the highway and it's a 55-mile-an-hour zone and you're doing 55, and you see a highway patrol on the side of the road, and he's out there with the radar gun. And he's pulling over every single car, waving every car off the road, even the guy in the right lane who was only doing 42. That, in my opinion, right now is how the SBA is treating your files and disaster loan applicants who are trying to get disaster loans. Hammer, everything's a no. I want to talk about one final thought about forgiveness and why it's not going to happen. Are we going to pop up some of the YouTube comments that we got? Did we talk about doing that?
It was in the transition, so.
Oh, it was already in the transition. Look at Linda Ray being so efficient. And I see the questions. I'm going to come to the questions.
Yeah.
And again, if you have questions, I would ask you to be concise and put your question into a single comment box, because I cannot track multiple comment boxes for one question. And just be concise, remove anything that we call storytelling. Just give me right to the crux of the question, and I will provide you with as much information that I can in limited space here on the broadcast. But forgiveness, a big part of our objection to this idea of magical, fantastical thinking that people think that they should be forgiven on these loans. I personally, and this is my opinion, I think that the source of this magical thinking is from folks who essentially are just not good at running their small business. Okay, I said it. Toshiba, you heard me, right? I said it.
The quiet part out loud.
Okay, Linda, you're off camera, which means you're off mic. Okay. By the way, she's really cute, and she's got my Snoopy socks on. I think a lot. Okay, let me say this: ℬ𝒜𝒞𝒦𝒢ℛ𝒪𝒰𝒩𝒟𝒮, when she was confirmed, when she was in the confirmation hearings to become the new administrator of the SBA, she said something very important. She said, the constituency of the Small Business Administration is 30 million small businesses in the United States. But only 4 million businesses took advantage of the COVID-19 EIDL program. Now, yes, I know, I hear you, I know. Many people applied and were not approved. By my anecdotal data, just here in our little practice, with the number of, we had 500 people that hired us, and with our anecdotal data, I'm going to guess the approval rate based upon applications was somewhere around 70%, right? So 30% of people who applied were probably, that's my number, 30% of people who applied did not get approved. And I'm going to talk about why I think that happened in the next segment. But still, 4 million loans. But if there are 30 million businesses, right? So if 4 million is 70%, what's 4 divided by 7 is 6.5. So around 6 million businesses may have, I don't know the numbers that apply, I'm just making up out of my head. So let's say 6 million people applied for the COVID EIDL program, but only 4 million were approved and funded. What about the other 24 million businesses that did not request assistance? Do you know why they probably did not request assistance? Number one, they had cash reserves. Number two, they had the kind of business that maybe was not impacted by pandemic lockdowns or other effects of the pandemic and did not need the assistance. Number three, just there are some people out there who just, I will not borrow money ever. And we get that, although, as a former lender and a financing broker, I don't really see the objection to borrowing money for your business, but that's just my opinion. So again, this is not empirical data. Statistics is just my anecdotal observations. If there are 30 million small businesses, but only 4 million people received the loans, maybe 6 million, maybe 7 million applied, then why didn't the other 23, 24 million apply? And I'm going to guess a lot of those folks didn't apply. They didn't need the money because they had cash reserves. And this is what I mean about folks often. And I know we're going to get the nasty comments. We're going to get people because they've been commenting all week on last Friday's video. Oh, you know, my business failed. They made me lock my doors. You know, okay. And I get it. A lot of businesses were impacted no matter how well prepared they were. But we have spoken, I personally have spoken to thousands of small business owners on the phone since the early days of the pandemic, since March, April of 2020. And time and again, I have discovered that a lot of these business owners are really just employees who own a business, who are really folks who maybe they developed a business from a hobby or from an idea or from another career and came over and started a business and moved in that, but they've never taken the time to educate themselves on what it takes to run a business. I'm talking about business fundamentals. Folks who, when I would say to them, are you up to date? You know, get me a letter of good standing from your Secretary of State. And people had no idea what that was. I mean, do you file your annual reports? Some folks don't know what that is, don't know they have to do that. Oh, my accountant does all that. Okay, I get it, your accountant does it, but why don't you know about that? And so I know I'm being cruel right now, but you know, it's what you pay me for, to be Scottish and blunt. I'm not going to apologize. Okay, I'm going to I'm going to answer some questions. Let me just scroll back up here because we see a lot of folks. So, hey guys, rainy in California, Toshiba. And let's see what else we got. Toshiba, you know, we've talked about this before. Offering compromise, the SBA does not allow for an offer in compromise negotiation on a COVID-19 EIDL. I don't even know if they allow it on a disaster loan that goes to default. Yes, offer in compromise, is available if you get an SBA loan, an SBA loan through a bank, such as an SBA 7A, an SBA 504, an SBA Express loan. But then you're really negotiating with the bank. You're not really negotiating with the SBA, and the SBA has to sign off on it. But the SBA currently, and based upon this legislation that was passed or that was proposed, it hasn't passed yet. I just don't see that there is any temperament in the current Senate or Congress or White House, for that matter, to assist you small business owners with forgiveness or with offering compromise. And going all the way back to the pandemic, one of the things that I suggested, that I thought as a former lender that the Congress could do, would be to offer you all a modification of your loan, refinance, if you will, to lower your interest rate from 3.75% to 1% for the remaining term in the loan. That would be pretty cool because that would lower payments dramatically. I mean, that would require the SBA to re-amortize the loans on your remaining balance at a lower rate. That's something that Congress could do. And I would encourage you to contact your congressperson and demand that they support small business by stepping up and doing more positive things with and for the Small Business Administration, and by extension for you, the small business owner. So contact your congressperson. Do it now. All righty. BH Global, currently in second hardship on a $500,000 COVID loan used on payroll. Okay. Business just sold and all proceeds were distributed to, oh, you have a problem, BH Global. You have a big problem. Okay. You're in serious trouble with the federal government right now. Did you have an attorney manage this? Did your attorney read the loan agreement that you all signed during the pandemic? Because that loan agreement clearly states you're not allowed to do what you just told us you did without permission from the Small Business Administration. And I will tell you, based upon several transactions we worked on in 2023 and 2024, notably buying out, in one of those transactions, buying out a business partner, SBA internally, their takeaway is if there's a buyout, if there's a dissolution, the SBA requires if there is any cash on the table, SBA requires that you use that cash to repay some or all of the COVID EIDL, and that nobody from the ownership position is allowed to walk away with money in their hand. So BH Global, it sounds like you need to hire an attorney and prepare some kind of an affirmative defense in the case. So I don't know how you process this, but there's a UCC lien against the business. And because the loan's over $500,000, thank you, Linda, this is not legal advice. We would encourage you to contact an attorney to confirm what I'm saying to you. This is my insights based upon my experience as a loan officer and worked on the program. You know, now I lost my train of thought.
UCC lien.
Oh, thank you. UCC lien against the business, but also because the loan's greater than $200,000, you all have personal guarantees for all owners who have a 20% or greater ownership interest in the business, which means that, and the United States government has a long memory. And do you have some serious problems here, BH Global? I apologize for giving you the bad news, but it's something that I do a lot, unfortunately, here on our channel. Okay, the lineup. Oh, I like it. Out of the pan into the frying pan. Invoking thoughts. Is bankruptcy on an EIDL loan under $39,000 doable? So again, as Linda just posted, we are not attorneys, and this is not legal advice. Please consult with an attorney. That having been said, I have found 4 attorneys, 3 here on YouTube and 1 on Instagram, all of whom have confirmed in their videos, not to me directly, but in their videos to their audience, that the COVID-19 EIDL can be included in bankruptcy. Next question. Lineup, thank you. Yes. Don't do that. You'll never get another SBA loan. And BH Global, you know, it's not just lineup. Thank you for that very valuable contribution. BH Global, it's not just that you won't get another SBA loan. You go on to a blacklist with the federal government. And you go into something called CAIVRS, CAIVRS, Credit Alert Interactive Verification Retrieval System, which we use in the mortgage business if you're applying for a government mortgage loan, and which the SBA uses and other government agencies use when you're applying for credit, or I think they use it even if you're getting a federal grant. And if you come up as a flag in the CAIVRS system, you cannot be approved for financing. So thank you, the lineup. Everyone here looking for answers. The only way is more debt. I don't know that the only way is more debt. Look, in my experience from the mortgage industry, credit is one of my areas of very special expertise. Like Liam Neeson in the movie when he says, I have a very special set of skills. Well, I have a very special set of skills when it comes to credit. I have read thousands of credit reports. I've seen every credit situation imaginable. Linda and I have been together 10 years, and I told her a decade ago, I said, if I read someone's credit report, I can tell in less than 3 minutes the character of that person from reading their credit. And one thing I know about credit is many Americans are shamed by the idea of bankruptcy. Except bankruptcy is a legitimate way to clean the slate. Why should you carry debt that you can't afford to pay back? I would encourage you, if you are in trouble with your business, or maybe your business is going along, but you're not making the kind of revenue and you're having difficulty making your payments on the COVID EIDL, I would encourage you to have a conversation with your CPA and with a bankruptcy attorney and explore your options. Do the research. Don't listen to me. I'm not an attorney. This is not legal advice. But bankruptcy is a viable option for many people, not for everybody. Because since there's a personal guarantee component for loans of $200,000 or greater on these products, some folks might have a conversation with their attorney, and their attorney says, well, look, We can do a business bankruptcy for the corporation, but then you're still on the hook for personal guarantee. You might have to file a personal bankruptcy as well. I can't answer that, but that is to follow up on the lineup statement. Everyone here is looking for answers. The only way is more debt. It's not necessarily more debt. Maybe it's time to reconfigure the entire business. Okay. Toshiba, I'm not good at business. Yes. Okay. Just for you folks who are just joining us maybe for the first time, Toshiba has been with us since the days of the pandemic. And he's one of our early purchasers of our EIDL Resource Hub, which lets me open the door to very briefly hucksterize and shill our services. And I use those phrases because we get folks commenting all the time, oh, just don't listen to this guy. He's nothing but a huckster, which I love that because I saw the guy's profile and I looked him up on LinkedIn and everything. He's like 24 years old. I love he's using a word, the huckster, which is literally from like the 1870s. But, you know, I subscribe to a lot of YouTube channels. In fact, when I'm entertaining myself, I'm mostly always on YouTube. I watch everything from history to cooking channels and all kinds of stuff. Yes, and even model car building, because when I was a kid, I built model cars. Okay, I said it. Model Car Muse. Big shout out to Doug White and Model Car Muse. Great channel, great videos. And, you know, a lot of YouTube channels are selling something. I don't understand why people have an objection to us being business owners coming on here and giving away free advice as a component of selling our services. Now, as of October 2024, our services no longer include consulting. We don't do 1-hour phone calls and we don't do full-on consulting anymore. We have the EIDL and Disaster Loan Resource Hub, which includes a downloadable PDF guidebook, which I designed in a way that answers every question you have in detail about these programs. And what's really cool, the way Linda Ray and I set it up, is if you're in a chapter reading something like how to speak to an SBA agent and you want to know about bankruptcy, you can click on that and it takes you right to the chapter on bankruptcy. That's how we designed it. The Resource Hub includes my special family recipe of templates that I have used in thousands of interactions, most recently just last night with an appeal letter on a declined disaster loan, templates I created to help you be successful with the SBA. SBA forms. So if you're doing a change of ownership, or as BH Global was doing, you know, closing the business down and looking to pay off the loan, distribute assets and so forth, SBA Form 912, SBA, you know, Hardship Accommodation form, all of those forms are included. And the new feature as of this year is that I will be recording instructional videos and you will have access to a private playlist. And yes, Toshiba, you will have access to that private playlist of instructional videos. The current price is $675, and we will be increasing that once we publish updates coming up before April 30th to $1,285. Okay, I did my shill, so there you go. I'm going to answer one more question, then I'm going to let Linda Ray lead us into the next section. Yeah, technically, I'm not an attorney, but I know what you're referring to, that comment earlier, and you may be right. So, BH Global, ironic. Well, having been in the mortgage industry for 30 years in the New York City area, I've seen it all. Having spoken to thousands of people, because we used to do free phone calls for folks to give free advice during the pandemic. That was our way of giving back. We didn't ask people to hire us. We didn't say you have to hire us. We said you get a 15-minute phone call with me. We gave it away, and we did our YouTube videos. So having spoken to thousands of folks during the pandemic, having been in the mortgage industry for 30 years, and I worked in retail before that, so, you know, shoplifting. And I grew up in New York City in the 1960s and 70s in a neighborhood where there were real criminals, okay? And I've been a victim of crime more than once. Here's what I'm going to say to you folks who think that there's, and I say this as well to the politicians who think the same thing. There's all kinds of fraud going on. There's not. Okay, there's not. Because if there was this massive amount of fraud, and I'm calling out the SBA's Office of Inspector General here as well, because he came out with a report which is absurd in every statement he made in that report. If there was that amount of massive fraud, our economy would crash in a heartbeat. There is not massive fraud. I promise you, when the numbers really come out years from now, if they ever come out, you will see the percentage of fraud on this program, the COVID program, is minuscule compared to the something like $1 trillion that went out into the American economy. Okay, Suncoast. I'm going into personal bankruptcy after dissolving my business. I'm disabled on Social Security. Can Treasure Garden? Yes, I'm sorry. First of all, I'm sorry for you having to file bankruptcy and dissolve your business, and I'm sorry. So we saw this happen last year when the SBA sent the COVID loans to U.S. Treasury for collection. We had 2 or 3 clients that hired us to get the loans recalled, and their Social Security payments were being garnished right off the bat. So that will happen. But here's the thing, Suncoast. I mean, you need to have this conversation with your attorney to include the COVID loan in your bankruptcy. Because as I mentioned earlier, I have found 3 attorneys here on YouTube, 1 attorney on Instagram, all of whom said, yes, the COVID EIDL loan can be included in bankruptcy. Okay, I'm going to hand it over to Linda to segue us into the next segment. And I'm going to
they'll never be found, or they'll wash up on the banks, 5 years from now.
And in this area, there was like houses that came from miles away.
10, 15, 20 miles away.
Wow. So the water was that powerful that it just...
As you get down this river where it feeds into the lake, there's an area we call the stew pot. It's like a log jam, and it's just solid houses and logs all the way down to the bottom of the river, all the way across. You can't even see the water, and you can't really search that effectively. It's just compressed all the way down. You can't get a diver in it. You can't get a boat in it. Something that people in the media haven't really touched on just because they don't know. It's not just about bringing them closure, but if you don't make a recovery, they're stuck in probate court for 3 years. They can't get a life insurance payout. So there's a lot more to it than just trying to bring their family member home, getting closure. They can't move forward financially or any other way until they get a death certificate. So we're just trying to get as much done as we can in the daylight in the next 2 weeks before it gets too cold and before we get a few feet of snow burying around, and the dogs.
Rescue crews in Connecticut are working around the clock after severe flooding hits the state. This morning, cleanup efforts are underway. Crews are working to inspect infrastructure and remove debris from damaged roadways and bridges. And meanwhile, some homeowners are still unsure about what to do about their damaged houses. Fox Weather's Chelsea Torres joins us live from Connecticut. Chelsea, wow, what a sight behind you.
Brian, when I first saw this, I was immediately shocked.
welcome back, and thank you for joining us this afternoon. My name is Trevor, and with my partner Linda Ray, we have been assisting small business owners since March of 2020 with the COVID-19 Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program. And since the program ended in May of 2022, we have also assisted small business owners and the occasional homeowner or renter with the SBA's Disaster Loan Program. And so in this segment, I want to discuss ideas that I have based upon my experience first as a mortgage banker, where I was in the mortgage industry for 30 years as a loan officer, specializing in Federal Housing Administration and Veterans Administration government lending, and my experience with the COVID program and disaster loan program to help you folks in disaster areas. And I'm talking to folks specifically in North Carolina, in Los Angeles area, but also other disaster areas around the country, to help you when you apply for a disaster loan to be more successful. A very distressing statistic that I came across on Monday. The SBA said in all of fiscal 2024, with all of the disasters in 2024, the SBA only approved and funded 18,000 disaster loans for homeowners and renters. I didn't find the number for small businesses for economic injury and damage, but 18,000. This number is disastrously low. And I hope that over the next few minutes, the advice that I'm going to give to you will help you be more successful, whether you have already applied and you're in process, or you've applied and you've been declined, or you're going to apply. Hopefully I can help you be more successful with that. During the COVID pandemic, we assisted hundreds of small business owners here on YouTube and clients that hired us to get approved for the COVID pandemic loan program. When the program ended in May of 2022, I took some time off. Linda Ray is still kind of zinging me about it because I told her I was going to take off 90 days. I wound up taking off 6 months. I got some sleep. I watched a lot of Star Wars movies. I read a lot of Michael Connelly. Well, it's not here on the table. A lot of Michael Connelly, Harry Bosch novels. And I chilled out. Because during the pandemic, I had been working 18, 19-hour days, 7 days a week. It was complete madness. But I also took time to analyze why many small businesses did not get approved for the COVID loan program. And I did a deep dive both on comments from our YouTube videos like this one, and mostly from work we did with our clients who hired us. And I arrived at 3 simple concepts to understand why you might fail with the SBA when applying for a disaster loan. And if you understand those 3 concepts, then you can be prepared for overcoming those 3 challenges. Number 1, the SBA has an over-reliance on the tax transcript that comes from the Internal Revenue Service. During the pandemic, the SBA used a form called 4506, which is an IRS form, which allows an outside party to request a copy of your transcript for a tax return you filed with the IRS. And now I'm seeing on disaster loans, the SBA is using instead now a different version of that form. It's called the 8821. In either case, the over-reliance on the tax transcript means the following issues. Number 1, if the request for the tax transcript on the form is not filled out exactly matching the tax return that was filed, then the IRS cannot find the tax return, and the IRS sends a message back to the SBA that says no record found. And as I mentioned in the previous segment, hammer, nail, everything's fraud. Well, very often an SBA agent will make the assumption, oh, this applicant's trying to defraud the government because they never filed a tax return, or they didn't file the tax return they told us they filed. When in fact, it was literally something as stupid as the fact that on the tax return, it says 123 Main Street, STREET, but the transcript request says 123 Main ST. Yeah, the abbreviation instead of the full word. I'm not kidding. That can cause a bounce of a tax transcript to come back, transcript request to come back from the IRS as no record found. In addition, the SBA seems to have issues with people who file a personal tax return with a Schedule C, and that causes problems, especially if the business owner is formally organized as, let's say Trevor's Classic Guitars LLC, but I file my taxes on a Schedule C on my personal tax return. Well, because I put in Trevor's Classic Guitars LLC as the business name on the disaster loan application, the SBA My SBA portal generates automatically this request for transcript, the 8821 currently, with the name of Trevor's Classic Guitars LLC, not Trevor Curran with my social security number. Which means when that request for Trevor's Classic Guitars LLC goes to the IRS, they can't find it because that's not the tax return that was filed. It was filed under my personal name. This is just one of many issues. Another main problem with their over-reliance on it is the SBA representatives rely on reading the transcript as opposed to what we do, or what I did at least in the mortgage business, what mortgage banking companies and banks do for your mortgage loan. We send out a request for a tax transcript as a way of quality control to verify that the tax return that the applicant gave us for their loan application is a valid tax return. Because as I said in the previous segment about criminals, I've seen it all, including a guy one night in the bank I was working at. I had interviewed him on the phone. He was self-employed, and he gave me some numbers off the tax return. And I said, well, it sounds to me like you will probably need someone to co-sign with you on the loan. You don't have enough income. He said, well, if I need it, I can have my brother co-sign. Okay, so we scheduled an appointment. He comes to my bank 7 o'clock at night, and he's sitting there in front of me, and he hands me the tax return, and I read the tax return, and I go, well, yeah, I was right. You gave me the numbers on the phone. So we definitely need your brother to co-sign with you on the loan. He goes, wait a minute. And he goes, use this one instead. And I'm like, what is this one? No, I had my guy make this one up. Use this tax return instead of that one. What? Yeah, he wanted me to use a fake tax return. This goes on, So I threw the guy out of my bank. I said, get the fuck out of my bank. Get out of here.
F-bomb.
F-bomb, Toshiba knows me too well. He knows I'm going to F-bomb. I've done pretty well so far, Toshiba and Linda Ray, right? This is my first F-bomb of the broadcast. I threw him out, and sadly, you can't report someone like that to the FBI. You can't, because there's issues around it. But in any event, that's what we would use the 4506 form to verify the tax return was actually filed and that it matched. But for the purposes of approving the mortgage loan, we would use the tax return, because you can read a tax return. If you've ever seen a transcript from the IRS, it's nearly impossible to read. It's these tiny little lines, and you literally have to hold up a ruler with one line. And what I have found in conversations with SBA representatives, they're reading the tax transcript, which means that on the line where it has your income, if there's an adjustment, they might confuse the two. So over-reliance on tax transcripts is the number one problem with getting approved for a disaster loan from the SBA. And I will tell you the problem is ongoing, because last night I spoke to a young man who he and his partner lost everything in the Eaton wildfire in Los Angeles. Everything gone. And he had applied for the disaster loan and was declined. And the loan officer, not once on the phone call with the loan officer, did the loan officer mention his partner's income, even though they're both on the loan application. Now, this was for a rental. This is not a business economic injury loan. This is someone who was renting a home and their home burned down. And this couple, when I say partner, I mean, like me and Linda Ray, like life partners, domestic partners. So he and his domestic partner lost everything. They applied for a disaster loan, which you're allowed to do under the disaster loan program. You can get money from the SBA at a very low cost, at a 30-year term in most cases, to replace the belongings that you've lost. And he put both of their names on the application. But when the loan officer called him, the loan specialist, they call him now, called him, he never once mentioned the domestic partner's tax returns. He just kept telling this young man that his income was insufficient, and they declined the loan for lack of repayment ability. The domestic partner does not have access to her tax returns because the hard drive that had it was lost in the fire. The paper copy was lost in the fire. So it's going to take her some time to get that together. But that's what I mean, this over-reliance on the tax transcripts. And so that's number one reason why you might get declined. Number two is literally you, the applicant. What we have seen so many times, and it continues, we see this where we see deficiencies in how the applicant prepares documents for submission or completes information, to which I encourage you to do two things. Number one, use the carpenter's rule, which is measure twice, cut once. And number two, never apply for a COVID loan or for a disaster loan on a smartphone. Don't do it. As an SBA representative said to me last year, she said, Trevor, fat thumbs cause all kinds of problems. Use a proper computer. If you have been burned out, you can go to the FEMA Center. They have computers there that you can use. You can go to your local library and get access to a computer so that you can apply for the loan. Do not apply for the loan with a smartphone.
Questions?
So the third reason why you may be declined for a disaster loan is what I call luck of the draw. As with this young man with the Eaton fire that I spoke to last night, who was declined, it was clear from his description of the loan specialist that this was somebody who is not a trained financial professional, doesn't even have good customer service skills. And so if your loan is in the hands of somebody like that, you can't control that. Okay? What happens if you're declined? I'm going to come to that, but first I'm going to answer some questions. So let's have a look. Shane Ward, will there be an avenue to bring the account current and continue loan payments? I'm not sure what this question means, Shane. I'd ask you to rephrase the question. Are you currently delinquent on the loan? Are you in the hardship accommodation program? Or has your loan been sent to U.S. Treasury for collections? If you can come back and answer that, put that in, then I would be happy to answer that. David Meyer, thank you for joining us today. Let us see. SOP. Oh, David, rock star. Okay, gonna drink some tea. You know, there's not a lot of folks who know what an SOP is. SOP is the SBA's Statement of Procedures, which is their underwriting book, which I read in the summer of 2020 after we'd helped our first 40 clients to get approved. And I will tell you, when we put those first COVID loans in, I said to Linda, we're never going to get these folks approved. And to my shock and surprise, I got them all approved. Then I got COVID. And I was in that bedroom sick with COVID for 6-7 weeks. And I read the SOP. Yes, Linda, thank you. I read it because of course I did. And I read the SOP, the Statement of Procedure. Can we put David's question back up?
Yeah.
I digress. David, the SOP used to allow owners to sell other existing share owners in SBA to remove original primary owner from repayment. Well, to be clear, the SOP was written for disaster loans, not for the COVID-19 EIDL. And the COVID-19 EIDL has modifications internally at the SBA that unfortunately I have not seen. Some of them I have learned in my travels from working with clients during and after the pandemic. So your question is, could you remove the original primary update? So what the SBA says about the COVID EIDL program is, if your loan is $200,000 or greater, you are personally guaranteeing the loan. If you are an owner with an ownership interest of 20% or greater, you are stuck with that for life. I have spoken ad nauseum, at length, with SBA representatives. They will not waive that. The only way to remove personal guarantee for a partner or an investor who leaves the business is literally pay the loan off in full. It's the only way to do that. Okay. And Shane, again, I would encourage you to please come back in and ask that question again. Let's see what else Toshiba, I see you got a lot of questions, but here's the best comment Toshiba can give you all folks, because he's used it. That's our EIDL resource.
This is the question I found.
Okay. Linda's, just so you, if you don't know, Linda is off to the side here. She's not 100%, feeling 100% today. So she's in her fuzzy pink robe, and I gave her my fuzzy Snoopy socks that matches my Peanuts Timex watch. But she's the peanut in the gallery, and she keeps shouting stuff at me, which is good because sometimes I need to be shouted at. But the really good news for me is she's not sitting next to me, and she's not kicking me under the table when I'm rambling on too much. So, okay. Shagets Cats. Thank you for joining us today. So you wouldn't know if I have a $500,000 EIDL and don't pay it. Will Treasury come after my office, furnished computer, and my personal house, etc.? Shagat, you are correct. I would not know that. two elements here. Number one, technically speaking, under the terms of the loan agreement, yeah, they can come after all the assets. That's what the loan agreement says. And, you know, yes, the federal government has attorneys, right? Technically speaking. But practically speaking, as recently as just 2 or 3 months ago, the SBA was basically asking you all to be civic-minded and to dispose of your assets in a reasonable manner to pay down these debts. The SBA was asking your help to be your own collection enforcer. So, as with so much about the Small Business Administration, because it is the ignored stepchild of the federal government, because politicians all the time say, small business is the backbone of the American economy. Yeah, but they don't walk the talk. Because if they did, they would be paying more attention to the Small Business Administration and giving that agency more resources. But of course, you know, this is in a nation where we don't have enough air traffic controllers. And apparently some knucklehead wants to fire those folks. I won't say who the knucklehead is, but you know who I'm talking about. So if they're not interested in keeping us safe in the air, what are they doing for you small business constituents? Well, so Shagat, the issue is they're allowed, under the terms of the loan agreement and other lending practices in the federal government guidelines and regulations, they're allowed to come after you and collect on the debt with whatever enforceable methods they can muster up. But practically speaking, you know, I find it really unlikely that an SBA federal agent is going to show up on your doorstep and seize the furniture and the computers. As far as your personal house, that is really a question for an attorney, because that's a legal question with regards to dissolution of assets, dissolution of the business, and your personal guarantee that you made when you got the loan, if your loan was $200,000 or greater. And yes, thank you, Linda, this is not legal advice. Okay. What else? What other questions have we got, Linda Ray? Because I'm
Charged off.
Shane Ward. Okay, my loan says charged off in the portal. It was delinquent. I have money. Great. So here's what you do, Shane. I hope you have a pencil. If not, make sure you watch this on replay. Actually, this is really in the third segment of the broadcast, but let me briefly, I'll give you the brief summary of what you need to do. But Shane, if you can, hang around for the third segment, because I'm going to talk about what's called the Hardship Accommodation Program to lower your monthly payments. And that's the mechanism the SBA uses to get you out of charge-off status and back up to current status. So you're going to want to send an email to cesc@sba.gov. In the subject line, you put hardship accommodation, your SBA loan number. In the body of the email, you write, please provide me with the document, the application for hardship accommodation, and sign it, Shane Ward. Send it off. That's it. Keep it simple. No storytelling. Don't tell them why you're late. Don't tell them you charge it. You don't need to tell them that. Just say hardship accommodation. Send the email. cesc@sba.gov. I know a lot of people, notably Reddit bros, always try to correct me and say, you know, Trevor, it's COVID EIDL Servicing Center, SBA.gov. Okay, you know, I actually have clients that we send these emails all the time. The CESC is abbreviated for COVID EIDL Servicing Center, and both emails go to the same place. Okay. So if you want to spend your time typing COVIDSE, okay, you can do that, or you just go CESC. So Shane, if you can, hang around, because in the third segment coming up, I will talk more extensively about the problem you're having with repayment and some recommendations I have to help you fix this overall, and also the hardship accommodation. I want to go back to disaster loans. So did we put together the B-roll with the news report from the guy who couldn't DocuSign? No, we didn't do that, right? Okay.
That was an article.
It was all right. Okay.
You didn't tell me to do anything with it.
We came across a news article, and she came across a news article, and I'm talking to Linda Ray, who's off camera because she's in her pink fuzzy robe. Okay. 2 weeks ago, came across a news article and a TV news report in North Carolina where a man had lost all kinds of stuff due to Hurricane Helene, and he had applied for a disaster loan, and he was complaining to the reporter that he was unable to submit the application because he couldn't sign the application. And so the reporter, instead of contacting somebody like me, which we've had reporters over the years contact us for insights and expert background information. No, the reporter contacts the SBA. And to their credit, the SBA responds. But the SBA's response is lame-o, because the SBA says, well, he should probably go to the local SBA center in his community, which, you know, it's North Carolina. Houses were swept off of hilltops. Like, hey, this is not something that is really easy to do. And it's a really shitty response from SBA, which leads me to my famous phrase, SBA, you got to do better. Because when I watched the news report, I read the article, because I've got this experience, the first thing I thought was, he can't sign the application? Okay, so if you don't know, when you apply for a disaster loan through the My SBA portal, all the documents are done through SBA's DocuSign feature, which is DocuSign is a secure electronic signature. It's not one of those things where you type in your name and Adobe puts in a little squiggly name, you know, Joe Blow. Joe Blow, it looks really cute. No, a secure electronic signature has a security certificate attached to the document. It locks the document so it can't be altered. And the SBA has that feature to sign your application. Why couldn't this person in North Carolina sign it? Well, I knew in less than 4 seconds. He was probably using the wrong browser. Yeah, because so we're StreamYard this video right now. Oh, thank you, BH Global. And you're pretty awesome yourself. Thank you. We're on Safari on my iPad right now for this video. But if you try to use Safari or Firefox to log into the My SBA portal or to interact with the SBA, you're going to have all kinds of problems. All kinds of problems. One thing you need to know is SBA's technology is basically 15 years behind the times. I heard that directly from somebody in the SBA. That's why SBA emails go to your spam folder, because their security certificates are so outdated. And so if you're going to interact with the SBA, number one, do not use a smartphone, because that might be the other problem. He might be using a smartphone and can't find the signature box. But most likely, he's using the wrong browser. Use Chrome. I've heard that Edge might work, but I use Chrome and have used Chrome for 5 years to interact with the SBA website, and it works every time. Okay. More tips for success when you apply for a disaster loan with the SBA. Do not call the SBA. Do not call. Did I say that out loud? Do not call. Send an email. 2 reasons. Number one, we have a long-standing phrase around here, going back to the days of the pandemic. If you have one question and you call 5 SBA agents, you will get 8 different answers. It's not their fault. They are well-meaning. They are polite. They are professional. They are courteous. They want to help you. They are really earnest in their attempts to help you. We love SBA representatives, but they have shitty training protocols internally at the SBA. And I say this to you as somebody who has spoken to, I want to say dozens, but it might be hundreds of SBA agents, and as recently as just 2 weeks ago. And I've had more than a few SBA agents say to me on the phone, you know, Trevor, you know more about this program than my colleagues do. Wait, what? I should not know more about the program than the people working in the program. And all the knowledge I picked up was from a cursory reading of the statement procedure and interactions and working with small business. So don't call. Send an email. Second reason you want to send an email is you have a written record so you can document things. Physical damage, economic injury. If you are a homeowner, a renter, or a small business owner, you can apply for a disaster loan for the physical damage. If you're a renter, all of the belongings you've lost in the fire, the wildfire, the wildfire, the tornado, the hurricane, the flood, you can get a low-cost loan through the SBA to replace the belongings. If you're a homeowner, you can get the same type of funding for replacing lost belongings, but also to repair the house that you own. If you are a small business owner, you can get a low fixed rate loan to repair physical damage to your business. I spoke to one of our clients yesterday. We're helping him to do a change of ownership in his business and ultimately to get some SBA financing from a lender. He's one of our remaining dozen or so clients because we're winding down our consulting practice. And we're not taking new clients. I apologize. And he is in Indiana and told me that he had a disaster in the area. He said, we get them every 2 or 3 years. A tornado comes through and rips off the siding off of his business. It's a cigar bar, cafe type of place. So small business, homeowner, renter, you can get physical. Now, the thing with physical damage is you have to apply fairly quickly. I don't remember the exact timeline, but it tends to be, I don't know, is it 90 or 120 days? You got to apply very quickly for the physical damage loan. So if you're in a disaster, I would encourage you, apply as quickly as you can for the physical damage with the full knowledge that, let's say you apply for a physical damage loan and you get $38,000 from the SBA. Well, as for the loan agreement you're going to sign, it says in the loan agreement, you must notify the SBA as soon as you discover that you need more money to repair the physical damage up to 2 years from the disbursement date. So in other words, the strategy you should adopt is get the physical disaster loan as quickly as you can, get whatever they're going to approve for you, and then as you are replenishing your belongings, repairing your business, replacing the siding, replacing the roof, repairing your house, whatever it is, if you or your contractor discover you need another $25,000, you can come back to the SBA through the My SBA portal. You go to the Messages tab, drops down, and there's a drop-down menu for messages, and you click on Request Increase. And they give you instructions on how to request the increase. So, and you have up to 2 years to do that from the initial funding. Now, I don't know if you can come back more than once, but I imagine you probably could. I've never seen it happen. I've never done it for anybody. Yesterday rather, we have a client with 2 rental properties in New Hampshire. We've been working with her for a year. She finally got all her contractors' estimates together, and we're requesting that increase because she got originally $68,000, and now she needs another $70,000 or $80,000. So that is possible. Economic injury for a small business in a disaster area, if your business had physical damage and you lose revenue as a result of that disaster, or if you have don't tell Trevor I just posted this banner. She's over here giggling away. This is what happens when you got a cute, cozy girl. She's all cozy over there on the couch. Okay, now I lost my track. Okay, so if you're a small business owner, if you had physical damage or not, if you've lost revenue, you can apply for either with your physical damage loan or just an economic injury loan for lost revenue. Typically, you have something like 6 months to apply for that. And I would encourage you, if you're only going to request a disaster loan for loss of revenue for economic injury, I would encourage you to slow down. Get all your ducks in a row. Carpenter's rule, measure twice, cut once. Because one of the biggest issues that we have seen time and again with folks applying for disaster loans is a failure to prepare their documents in advance. So I would slow down if economic injury is what you need. Okay. 2 more items on the disaster loans. I'm going to take some more questions. With the disaster loan program, there are 3 phases of your loan application. You have your initial application, which hopefully you get approved for. But if you are declined, as with the young man that I spoke to last night who lost everything in the Eaton wildfires, if you are declined, you can then request what's called a reconsideration. You cannot reapply. Do not send in a fresh application. You go to your My SBA portal. If your loan's been declined, when you see your loan summary page, you'll see on the top it says not showing inactive. You have to click on the box the little checkbox for inactive, and your declined application will appear on the screen. And at the bottom, you'll see request reconsideration. So you're going to click on request reconsideration, and then it will ask you, are you sure you want to request? Yes, of course I want to request reconsideration. Why do you think I clicked on the damn button? Okay, but anyway, you got to click on yes, confirm, I want to request reconsideration. And then a new screen opens up and they ask you for the reason why you're requesting reconsideration. And I would encourage you to keep it simple. Keep it simple. As with the young man last night, where he was declined due to inability to repay, or with some of our other disaster loan clients who were declined because of discrepancies between the disaster loan application and their COVID application. If you don't know what the discrepancy is, if you don't know why the loan officer couldn't qualify you as your ability to repay, then keep it simple. In that information box, you type in, my loan was declined for inability to repay. My loan was declined for a discrepancy. I do not know what that means. Therefore, I cannot submit any supporting documentation, because when you request reconsideration, they ask you to upload supporting documents. I would encourage you then to take that and put it into an affidavit, put a secure electronic signature on it, upload that in the upload documents feature below the dialog box, and upload your most recent federal tax return. If it's a business, upload your letter of good standing from your Secretary of State. A year-to-date profit and loss statement is always helpful. For more information on the details of this, I would encourage you to click the link and consider purchasing access to our Disaster Loan Resource Hub. I am writing the book. We did a guidebook during the pandemic called Roadmap to Reconsideration for folks who were declined for reconsideration. I am currently modifying that specifically for disaster loans. So it's not published yet, but you can purchase your access to it now. Click on the link. When we update it, the price will go from $675 to $1,285, because at that time it will have all the forms, all of my secret special templates I created for emails and letters and affidavits, and it will have all the SBA forms, but it will also have access to a private playlist of instructional videos. So there, Linda Ray,
Yes.
you paying attention? I just did the huckster thing, okay?
Oh, yes.
I'm shilling. Okay.
All right.
All right, last item on disaster loans. If you got a COVID-19 EIDL and you're applying for disaster loan, before you apply, send in a Freedom of Information Act request and get a copy of your original COVID-19 application. Don't tell me you have it, because nobody got it. You know why you didn't get it? Because the SBA didn't make it available to you. I learned that the hard way with the first application I submitted in April 2020, which was for our business. Even though we didn't have a lot of revenue in 2019, I wanted to test us as the guinea pig before I wasted our clients' time. And I learned the hard way, you could not download the application. So don't tell me you have it. People tell me, I got it. And then they send me their loan agreement. That's not the application. Do a Freedom of Information Act request. We did a video on it previously. You can find it in our playlist. We have more detail about the FOIA, Freedom of Information Act request, in our EIDL Resource Hub. Make sure you get that, because we are seeing SBA declining loans for discrepancies. Now, as I mentioned in the first segment, hammer, everything's a nail. We're seeing that SBA, in my opinion, this is my latest theory as of this week, SBA has told two of our clients, you cannot be approved due to, we did an audit of your file and you are not eligible for any disaster loan assistance. And they will not tell us the reason why. And I've seen the client's original EIDL application from the pandemic. It's perfect. This is a business owner who has all the I's dotted, all the T's crossed. I saw his disaster loan paperwork. Perfect. We are still scratching our heads, but I think it comes down to somewhere along the line, his file was flagged for fraud. For the stupidest things. During the pandemic, one of the SBA specialists I talked to, he was a guy in his 70s, and I always introduce myself as a former loan officer. And he said to Trevor, I just retired from a short career as Bank of America as a loan officer. I'm like, oh, cool. He goes, before that, I was an FBI agent. Whoa. So we had a great conversation about criminals and fraud and stuff. And he said to me, this is in 2021, he said, Trevor, around here is a lot of my colleagues who will flag a file for fraud for the stupidest thing. They think because the applicant used a different email address or a different person called to check on the file, any number of things. And it's not. He said they wouldn't know a criminal if it hit them in the head. And my theory is that right now, because of all that political pressure I mentioned in the first segment, that SBA basically said, okay, we're going to do more about enforcing and rooting out fraud in the program. They're delegating a lot of resources internally. That's my opinion. And that anything that looks, as you folks say on the West Coast, hinky to a clerk or a loan person or a specialist of the SBA, that they're going to mark your file as fraudulent. So you've got to be extra careful. As Linda Ray always says, you have to be better than the SBA. Okay. Linda Ray, do we have some questions?
We have some questions.
My tea is going cold, so I'm going to...
Actually, I don't think so.
I've got my pot of tea.
Say if they have. I don't think we do. If someone has a question, I don't see it.
Well, Toshiba came up with one for us,
Okay, great.
even though I think he left the broadcast briefly because he said he had to pause. Suncoast follow-up question. Bankruptcy for LLC versus personal bankruptcy needed on the EIDL $170,000 loan. Okay, I think Toshiba was asking kind of the same question that I was asking.
So should we go?
Okay, lineup. This is a really good statement. I don't know, lineup, are you saying that you applied for a disaster loan and the loan specialist told you they're focusing on cost of goods sold? Because I know cost of goods sold was an issue during the pandemic. There was a formula during the pandemic, right? Gross revenue minus cost of goods sold, whatever, to determine maximum qualifying income. But that, from what I know right now, that is not how the SBA, because they've changed their SOP, their statement of procedures. They're using kind of an automated underwriting, which I hate automated underwriting. I hate AI. I like people. I like real people to do stuff like this, make complicated decisions out of experience and wisdom and empathy. But if you're saying that they're still talking about cost of goods sold, that's news to me. But if you could expound on that, it'd be very helpful. Shagats, so you wouldn't know. Oh, we answered that already. Okay. Toshiba, thank you. No issue with F-bombs.
Yeah, that's way long time ago.
Long time ago, Linda Ray says. Okay. Well, in that case, I think we're going to go to the next segment, and I want to.
Here's one, Toshiba.
Second request: talk about Caver's credit with EIDL. It doesn't matter the loan amount, Toshiba. If you default on a federal debt, then your Social Security number and or EIN number is flagged inside the federal system. There's this system called the do not pay list. When they say do not pay, that's people who do not pay. So there's the do not pay list, but CAVER's Credit Alert Interactive Verification Retrieval System. And that is going to report anyone who defaults on any federal loan, regardless of the size of the loan. Oh, BH Global. I should head the SBA. Listen, we have offered that, not to run the SBA, but Linda Ray have multiple. We have on these live shows said to the SBA, hey, if you want to hire us, I could probably come in. I've run a mortgage company from scratch, a company that opened in the middle of the global mortgage meltdown, if you can imagine that. And I used a theory called golden arches, McDonald's. And we were very successful due to the ideas I had and how I developed that company. SBA, if you wanted to hire us, we would come in on a consulting practice, and I could probably fix a lot of the basic issues in 90 to 120 days. Because it's not that complicated. Shuggets, winding down to become the SBA head. Thank you.
I don't know if I don't think this is a real question. I think this is a crypto.
Block this person. This is a spammer, scammer. Okay, I'm going to hand it over to Linda Ray and to do a quick segue, and we're going to talk about, when we come back, SBA's problems with repayment of the COVID EIDL program. Just wanted to interrupt this video with a message for you folks watching our videos. We so appreciate that you tune in and how many of you have commented and complimented us on our videos over the last 4.5 years as we assisted people during the pandemic and as we continue to assist small business owners, both with the COVID-19 EIDL program and the Small Business Administration's Disaster Loan Program. And we're not going anywhere. We're going to keep providing up-to-date, accurate information that you can use to be successful when you have to deal with the Small Business Administration. But you might not be aware that more than 70% of the folks who watch our videos are not subscribed. So stop right now, just click on the subscribe button and then click on the bell so you get all the notifications. And we know that you don't need to get these videos all the time, and we're not going to try to overwhelm you, but we have found time and again that folks who tune into our channels, whether they are using our videos in real time or they're using some of our older videos, they have found ways to use our information to be successful when they have to deal with the SBA, even if it's something as simple as calling the SBA. So take a moment right now, if you wouldn't mind, and subscribe to this channel, and it tells YouTube that our video has some merit and it needs to be pushed out there so more small business owners like you can get this information. And would you consider sharing our video that you're watching today with someone you know who's a small business owner, or maybe your CPA, or maybe your attorney? Because again, we hear from folks all the time asking for our help, asking for our consulting services, which we no longer offer. And then we also hear from those same folks how their attorney didn't know how to manage the problem with the SBA, or how their accountant, their CPA, doesn't know how to manage the problem with the SBA. Thanks for tuning in. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. This is a live question and answer video I'm doing to, primarily I wanted to be here to assist folks in disaster areas, notably in North Carolina after Hurricane Helene and Milton, and after the wildfires in Los Angeles. If you are watching this video on the replay, I would encourage you please to share this video with anyone you know who may be affected in those disaster areas. Are you waving at me off camera? Yeah, Linda gets very impatient with me.
We already covered that in the 2 minutes.
So thank you for joining us. And I will be going live again next week, Thursday, February 20th, 5:30 p.m. Eastern Time, 2:30 p.m. Pacific Time. And so if you could let folks know about that. And again, I will take questions in real time. This segment, I'm going to talk about the SBA's mismanagement of the repayment systems for the COVID EIDL program. Before I do, I have a couple of questions to answer. BH Global, I see the 2 questions. I understand what you're saying here. You know, you have don't really care about future government loans, but I would encourage you to consult with an attorney ASAP, simply to put in place some kind of legal protections. I don't know what those would be because I'm not an attorney. Bring your loan agreement and obviously your articles of formation and the disbursement of the funds. You know, as far as the SBA and the government is concerned, that $500,000 COVID loan you got should have been paid back. And if there was money left over from disposal of the assets of the business, then the partners can get their share. But the fact that those assets were dispersed to the partners, I mean, that it literally says in the loan agreement, that's a massive no-no. But again, to answer your question as to how to proceed from here, I can't help you. You need an attorney. I would contact your local or your state bar association for a referral to a low-cost attorney who can assist you with that. Okay, David, your question is there anything in writing that says SBA SOPs don't apply to COVID EIDL? Not that I have seen. I'm just going based on comments that, you know, and the work that we did with thousands of interactions with the SBA. Okay, COVID-19 EIDL. You got an economic injury disaster loan during the pandemic. SBA's management of the repayment system has been a nightmare, and it continues to be. With 2 of our clients, by example, One is a manufacturer in North Carolina. We assisted him during the pandemic after he was declined due to credit, and I ran his credit report. And we run real credit reports here at Aurora Consulting, not that crap you get online. And I didn't really see anything that was wrong with his credit. He didn't have a lot of credit. In any event, we submitted a request for reconsideration. We got him approved. Last year, he contacted us. He was doing a change of ownership, and he wanted us to process the paperwork. So we started working on that. But also, he was worried about some revenue issues, so I recommended he apply for the Hardship Accommodation Program, which allows you to lower your payments on the COVID EIDL in increments of 6 months at a time. The first 2 6-month periods, you can lower your payment down to 10% of the required payment. So you're lowering your payment by as much as 90%. And then the third 6-month period, your payment gets lowered to 50% of the required payment. And then the final 2 payment periods for hardship accommodation, your payment goes to 75% of the required payment. So you get a total, if you do it consecutively, of 2.5 years worth of consecutive 6-month accommodation periods to lower your payment. So we got our client approved in April of last year for the hardship accommodation program. He goes in, he's making his payments, and he contacts me, or I think I contacted him in September because we wanted to prepare for requesting an extension, because you have to request an extension at the end of the 6-month period. The SBA does not automatically move you into the next period. You have to contact them, and you do that, by the way, by sending an email to cesc@sba.gov, and you put in the subject line extension hardship accommodation, or just abbreviated HAP extension, and your SBA loan number. Body of the email, I wish to apply for extension, and your name. That's it. Keep it simple. Send it in. They'll send you the application, which is the same application you filled out if your loan was greater than $200,000. If your loan is less than $200,000, you can request the extension directly, in most cases, on the My SBA portal. I just did that a few weeks ago for one of our clients who has 7 restaurants in the Los Angeles area, and some of his loans were less than $200,000. So I was able to go to the My SBA portal and request extension, and it was approved. Up, I like how that sounds, just like that. That's one of the easiest SBA transactions I've ever done in my life. But going back to our client with the factory in North Carolina, we got him approved in April for hardship accommodation. His payment goes from $2,500 or $2,700 to $270 a month. He's making the payments. September, we go in. I always look at the payment history before I request an extension or before I do anything. I want to see that people have been paying their bills. Well, lo and behold, SBA has him marked as delinquent. We called the SBA, can't get an answer as to why they marked him as delinquent. Not only was he making his hardship payments on time, he had doubled up on the payments twice. So he was actually out ahead of it. We submitted the request for extension. A loan specialist contacts him and says, I cannot approve your request for extension until you make a full payment of $2,700 to bring the loan current. He's like, but I'm not current. I'm not delinquent. So I'm telling you that the mismanagement of the repayment system within the SBA continues to this day, and it's February 2025. We have another client who we got them approved for hardship accommodation. Their loan was at U.S. Treasury. And Shane had asked us earlier about his file shows his charge-off. So the SBA, starting in February, March, April of last year, they announced that if your file's at U.S. Treasury, you can recall the file from collections at U.S. Treasury by signing up for the reduced payments in the hardship accommodation program. So we got this client removed from Treasury collections and back into repayment under the hardship program. We then, at the end of the 6-month period, submitted a request for extension of the hardship into a second 6-month period. Client went away on vacation 1 week. SBA loan specialist sent him an email during the week he was away. On his first Monday back at work, he gets a second email. He sees the first email, and before he can respond to that, he sees a second email. Urgent, final notice. And she's saying, you've got to respond. Now, mind you, she had sent the first email the previous Tuesday. And now here it was Monday, and she's demanding he respond. You know, I guess these loan folks at SBA don't understand that a lot of their emails go to the spam folder. And unless you are actively searching your spam folder, which is what we recommend every day, we recommend a daily practice, by the way. You know, you have that daily practice of meditating about all your childhood trauma. Yeah, you have to meditate about SBA trauma. Your daily practice should be to check the spam folder twice and put SBA into the search box of your spam folder to make sure you didn't miss any important SBA's emails for any transaction you're working on with the SBA. In any event, in the body of the email, she says, there's a problem with the application submitted. Something has to be changed. It was something to do with the formation of the business. And you must reply to this email that you agree. So this is the new thing that we're seeing with the extension request. You get an email from the loan specialist and they outline the terms of the extension, which you already know because you're in hardship already, but okay, they got to tell you again. And then they say, you must reply with the word agreed. And it's buried all the way down the email. And, you know, a lot of folks don't read emails. There's some kind of research recently I found where people, you know, read an email for less than 7 seconds or something. And to get to this part where it says you must reply agreed, I mean, you got to read the whole email. It's a good, 30, 40 seconds of your life you got to invest. I read everything, as Linda Ray will tell you. I read everything. And anyway, so I advise the client, respond agreed and indicate that you'll have the repaired form. And so we got the form fixed and we submitted it the next day, Tuesday. The day after that, Wednesday, she sent a notice. You have been declined for your request for extension because you didn't respond in enough time. Tuesday to Tuesday. How many days is that, Linda?
8.
No, 7.
Well, if you count both Tuesdays.
Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. I would say 8. Hashtag math is fun. 8 days. That's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. Here's another issue we've seen. Lovely client here in Connecticut. He's a dentist. His loan was sent to collections, even though he had been approved for hardship, but the SBA systems never reflected the hardship payment. He even sent me the email from his loan specialist who approved his hardship accommodation, where she copied him on an email to her supervisor saying, hey, supervisor, I don't understand something. He's approved for hardship. How come on the My SBA portal it still has the full payment? And he never heard an answer back. And next thing he knows, he gets a letter that he's in collections at U.S. Treasury. So hired us. We got him removed from collections, got him into hardship. Contacted me at the end of last year to request the extension. So I have a template, which all of my templates, my special recipe templates of emails and letters and affidavits, you can find in our EIDL and Disaster Loan Resource Hub. Click on the link in the description. Currently priced at $675. I'm working on a whole bunch of updates and the instructional videos, which will be included in the update. And when we publish those, the price will increase to $1,285. But if you buy it now at $675, you get those updates when we publish them through April 30th of this year, 2025. In any event, I took my template, gave it to the client. He submitted it because you have to use the same email address you used 5 years ago when you applied for the loan. Yes, this is true. It's bizarro, but it's true. So he sends the email in and he gets an email back from the COVID Servicing Center, not a person, the COVID Servicing Center. Oh, no, you cannot request extension to hardship right now. You have to wait until the last day of your hardship period because we were being proactive, something I encourage you all to do. And we were requesting it 2 weeks in advance. So if his hardship accommodation, the first 6-month period ended on the 17th of the month, I had to wait until the 18th of the month to have him resubmit the email. Meanwhile, for other clients, we have submitted the hardship accommodation extension request at all different times, and no one else has said to us, you got to wait until the current period ends. This is what is a consistent problem with SBA's inconsistencies and dysfunction. And what has caused this dysfunction? Your political representatives are thumbing their nose at you as a small business owner constituent, and the Congress has failed for decades to support you by supporting the Small Business Administration. Call your congressperson today. One other issue I want to talk about, then I'm going to answer some questions. If your loan was sent to U.S. Treasury last year and you got it back out of collections through the Hardship Accommodation Program, what SBA told a reporter for the Wall Street Journal, what SBA told Louis Cam from NBC Universal, who interviewed me and several of our clients about this debacle with U.S. Treasury, what the SBA told Congress is that, quote, we have taken over the Treasury offset program. The SBA did not say we have recalled these loans from collection and brought them back into current status. What they said was we have taken over the TOP, the Treasury Offset Program, which is the United States Treasury's Collections Enforcement Division. Just like if you have a Macy's credit card, okay, and you don't make those payments to Macy's, well, then you get a notice from Macy's that you're delinquent. They want you to pay. Ultimately, I think it's 90 or 120 days, Macy's internally assigns your credit card bill out of their regular credit card department to their internal collection department. And now you're dealing with somebody, now, they don't tell you they're doing this. This is internally, but and what they have done technically is charged off the debt on their books as a bad debt. And that's the next step. If you don't pay then to their internal collection department, then they could potentially sell that debt for pennies on the dollar out to an outside independent collection agency. Well, using that same logic, when the SBA says SBA has taken over the Treasury Offset Program, to me, as a former banker for 30 years in the lending industry, that sounds to me like what the SBA is saying is your loan is not out of default status. It means that we're managing your repayments for the next 2 years. That's the timeline they gave. But you're still basically considered in collection status. I've called the SBA with clients and I've scoured SBA website and I cannot see anywhere. SBA representatives have told me on the phone, no, Trevor, no, it's in hardship accommodation. It shows dispersed current. Listen, I can see that it shows dispersed current on the My SBA portal. But as a former lender, as the fact that credit is an area of my special skills and expertise, I do not trust the SBA that these loans are not internally considered still to be in default. So if you were in U.S. Treasury last year and your loan was brought back, you should be concerned. I don't know what to do yet. Subscribe to our channel, watch our update videos about that. Linda.
Yes.
Linda, so for those of you, you see Linda Ray and Trevor here at the bottom of the screen. Linda Ray is over there on the couch in a fuzzy pink robe. It's a cold, wintry day here in New England. We had snow last night and fuzzy rain this morning. Anyway, she's in her pink fuzzy robe and my fuzzy Snoopy socks that matches my Peanuts watch. And she's going to manage questions for me. What have we got?
We got this.
Vasily, 50/50 trucking company, took 150,000 applications. Okay, so Vasily, what happened here is it sounds like you have a defective application when you applied for the loan that you should have disclosed on the application that you and your wife were 50% owners. It sounds to me from your description here, and if I'm wrong, please correct me in the comment, but it sounds like you applied for the loan where you may have put yourself down as 100% owner. The first step is to file a Freedom of Information Act request, get a copy of that application to see if that's what you did. Because maybe you didn't. You know, I don't know, the way this sentence is written, it seems like you're a pretty sharp person, a sharp small business owner. I mean, this is a very well written question, and I'm going to guess maybe you did it correctly. So I would do that first. And then if you get that application, and you can get that in less than 30 days. It's a pretty simple process. And if you want the details, I can tell you I can tell you have to do it. I'm not going to tell you how to do it here on this broadcast. It's too complicated. But our resource hub gives you the templates and the forms. There's Department of Justice Certificate of Identity forms, all that, and you can use that information. Click on the link for your access to the resource hub for that if you want to do it yourself that way. But get a copy of the application and look at that, how you enter that information, Vasily. And once you've done that, if in fact it does not reflect 50-50, I wouldn't say you lower it as much as you just contact SBA and say, oops, I made a mistake. Can we? And you can file a correction. File a correction with them. They'll send you the change of ownership form, and then you'll do it on that. But I wouldn't submit that until you have a copy of the application. It's very important to see how you originally applied, because here's the other issue. Let's say you get the Freedom of Information Act and you get the application and you see, yes, I made a mistake. I put myself down as 100% and my wife is not on here. The other issue that we're seeing, and if you've been with us a while on this broadcast, you've heard me mention many times that SBA, in their zeal to root out fraud and criminals out of the program, is a hammer and everything's a nail. Well, they're going to treat you like a nail, which means that you want to look at that original application to see if there are any other discrepancies on that application that do not match your business today or how your business was in 2020. So I would recommend that you do that first. Linda, what's our next question?
I think David is.
David, all right, I'm just going to read from the sidebar here, and then I'll pop one on the screen. Trevor, is there anything right? We did that. If business is hardship on COVID loan, apply for a new loan. No. So this is an excellent question. Thank you, David. If the business is in a hardship accommodation, a COVID EIDL, and you apply for a new loan, SBA or conventional, but not a new IDL, can you get the COVID EIDL subordinated under the new loan? No. SBA's COVID loan is going to take first position in every instance, and your lender is going to file a subordination request for the new loan you're going to get, and it doesn't matter if you're in a hardship accommodation or not. That doesn't matter. Okay. And in my profession, if IRS business, I can't answer this question about a 7A or conventional loan because we've been long out of the commercial financing business. We had basically I retired from the mortgage business in 2018, and Linda and I hit the ground running, networking and marketing. We had built a little book of business when COVID put us out of business as commercial financing brokers. So I don't have enough experience to answer this question about being in a payment plan. I will say, as a former mortgage banker, there are certain issues around having a payment plan with the IRS. It requires an extra level of verification depending on the type of mortgage loan you're getting for a house. But in terms of a business loan, I can't answer that. I apologize. So it looks like those are all our questions for today. I will be back here next Thursday, February 20th at 5:30 p.m. Eastern Time and 2:30 p.m. Pacific Time. And as Linda has just pointed out, if you want to say thank you for the advice, you can do that with the button below the chat, which allows you to buy me a cup of coffee, but better yet, buy me a pizza, because I love pizza. Or you can purchase our EIDL Disaster Loan Resource Hub, which is currently $675 with access to free updates through April 30th, 2025. And when we publish those updates, including access to a private playlist of instructional videos, the price will go up to $1,285. But if you buy it now at $675, you will get that. You'll get those updates free of charge through April 30th, 2025. I want to mention about what I just did, shills and hucksters. I mentioned this at the beginning of the broadcast, and we've had more than a few people accuse us here on YouTube. Don't listen to this guy. He's just a huckster. Just a few days ago, somebody said, look at this guy shilling his wares. Well, this is what small businesses do. YouTube, just so you know, I know everybody thinks that everyone on YouTube is Mr. Beast. How much did Mr. Beast make? I don't know, like $50 million or something. Like, he makes an insane amount of money. That is not the story for most all YouTubers. Most all of us make a few shekels. For us here, I'll tell you, I don't mind telling you, we're perfectly transparent. Every 3 months, if we qualify, because YouTube's requirements are very stringent, if we qualify, then we maybe make about $200 or so every 3 months. So if that's consistent, I mean, you know, come on, that's $800 a year. That's not paying our bills. So, you know, so for us, like many other folks here on YouTube, we're not hucksterizing. We're not shilling. We are business people just like you. Now, I can understand if somebody is watching me and I'm doing a knitting show and I'm teaching you how to do the loop and the knit. And I say, by the way, you know, this product, you know, I have an affiliate link, you know, and if you get annoyed with me that I'm teaching you how to knit, but also, you know, you can buy products that I'm promoting. Okay, you want to call me a show. But literally, that's for consumers. You folks are all business owners. I mean, most of you. Linda's best friend, Jen, was here visiting for a weekend, and we're sitting over here having dinner. And Jen is a superstar business owner. And we were telling her these stories about folks that reach out to us for help, but folks don't offer to pay, or people accusing us on YouTube of being shills and hucksters. And Jen goes, wow, you know, that's why she said, I don't do B2C, business to consumer. She says, I do only B2B, business to business. And we went, we are B2B. She couldn't believe it. That these kinds of comments we get, these kinds of accusations, we are business owners just like you. Why would you disrespect us for attempting to give you advice, as we've done here for almost the last 2 hours, for free, answering questions for free, and yet also ask you if you are interested, buy our products? I don't know. I think that's called capitalism. Just me talking out loud. Like and subscribe, or say thank you. Give us a few shekels so I can buy a pizza, because I love pizza. And we live in Connecticut, where, you know, Connecticut is kind of renowned for amazing pizza. And there's a place not far from here called Julio's. The pizza is amazing. There's the EIDL, COVID EIDL Disaster Loan Resource Hub that you can access. But if you don't do any of those things, if you don't subscribe, if you don't like, if you don't send us a few bucks for a pizza, if you don't buy the resource hub, that's okay. We will still do this. We have been doing this. You know, here's the other thing that I get annoyed with the whole, you people are shills, you people are hucksters, and so forth. You don't know me, and you don't know Linda Ray, and you don't know what we do for charitable giving. You don't know us.
Well, they do, because they're here.
No, well, you folks do watching the video, but also, you know, and we don't come on here going, oh, you know, we did this and we did that. But I will tell you, we give away a lot to folks because we have empathy for people going through a natural disaster. We had empathy during the pandemic. We gave away a lot. We do this. So I don't think it is unreasonable for us to be seriously offended when you accuse us of these terrible shill and huckster, and that we ask you to.
We're preaching to the choir.
But if you do not want to do all of those things, like subscribe, give us a few bucks through thank you, buy the resource hub, you know what you can do? You be the charitable giver. Put your money where your mouth is. Put your charity where your mouth is, and share this video. Share our other videos on our disaster loan playlist with somebody that you know in North Carolina or Florida or Texas or California or anywhere else where somebody has been impacted by a disaster or has a COVID EIDL and may need this advice. Share our videos. Better yet, share our videos with your CPA and your attorney. You know why? Because we get people all the time who tell us, I can't get a straight answer. I mean, BH Global is here with this whole thing that happened with her business, and her attorney never even seems to have addressed this in the buyout with the partners and the disposal of the assets. Why is that? Because somebody didn't tell that attorney to watch this guy on YouTube. So watch me. On that note, yesterday afternoon, I made rigatoni bolognese. If you don't know already, I love to cook. And I made rigatoni bolognese, nice colavita rigatoni, big noodles, and I make my own bolognese sauce. So I'm going to say farewell to all of you. Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us. And I'm going to go warm up some bolognese for my lovely lady, Linda Ray, who I call her Meg. Meg stands for My Everything Girl. Thank you all for tuning up. Thank you all for tuning in. And please share the video at the very least. We'll see you next week.